Alright, what is up everybody? So, been a long time since I made a Warframe video. Have had a lot of things going on in real life over the past year or so. We had another kid, a lot of stuff going on at work and everything. Haven't had as much time to play Warframe. Frankly, wasn't as quite as passionate about Warframe for quite a while. Um, but I've been playing a lot more recently. Obviously, TennoCon got me extremely excited. So I was, very much looking forward to a lot of what they showed, and I think they kind of blew it out of the park and exceeded expectations. So one of the things I would like to do is make videos that are a little more streamlined. In the past, I have made very long videos. They rambled a lot, which I'm doing right now. So in this video, I want to do a few things. I kind of want to go over like some of my goals moving forward. And then I'd like to cover some thoughts about the Helminth system, which is related to those goals, and then the plans I have with actual video content, and then the build, which would be for Titania today. Um, so I got a little frustrated with Warframe. Part of the reason I stopped making content was because I felt like builds had gotten kind of bland. Um, and the reason I started my channel in the first place was because of the Helminth system. When that got added, the very first video I made was the old Zephyr before she got a rework, and Ensnare. That was the first video I ever made. It was pretty successful. Unfortunately, that build basically doesn't work anymore because Zephyr's gotten changed. But I thought that the Helminth system was going to be this revolutionary, amazing, awesome thing. And it's nifty, but the more time has gone on, the more it seems like the Helminth system lets DE get away with really bad design choices because players can always band-aid fix those design choices using the Helminth system. I think that there are a couple massive outliers. So I think Pillage is absolutely insanely good. You can basically put Pillage on practically any frame in the game. If you want to armor strip, you can jack up your strength. You can just use it as a defensive option because it cleanses statuses, it resets your shields. So it's an insane ability no matter what. It scales off of strength for the armor and shield strip. It scales off duration and range for how far it goes. So you can use pillage on builds that have no range. Like it's just insane. Like it's one of the most flexible abilities in the whole game. And then if you have a frame that is basically invincible anyways, like Revenant, well, okay, Slap Roar, maybe Eclipse in particular scenarios. Like Profit Taker, I think Eclipse is better than Roar, for example. But like, yeah, it's gotten kind of stale. And or Gloom, I think, is the third one. Gloom really enables a lot of frames to function, such as Banshee, Ember, like stuff like that. I think some frames that really benefit from that AoE slow. So, yeah, I think that there are a few examples where there are cool synergies with the Helminth system, such as like Ash's Blade Storm and the Savage Silence Augment. That's pretty cool. That's like a very interesting synergy that opens up from that system. But I think for the most part, DE has really, really relied on shield gating as a crutch to cover up what I think are maybe not the best design decisions. Um, and a lot of this only becomes apparent in like higher levels of Steel Path. And in the past, they always said when Steel Path first launched, they said that you know there will be no unique rewards to Steel Path. Steel Path will just be like maybe more frequent rewards that you could get from normal missions or whatever. But now we have things like the Steel Path Circuit, which has an entirely different reward track than the normal circuit. So it's gotten to a point where if you want the cool stuff in Warframe, if you want the good stuff in Warframe, you also have the Archon shards, which to do those I mean, the Archon missions are like basically Steel Path missions for how difficult the enemies are because they're so high level. If you want the cool stuff, you basically have to do Steel Path. So a lot of these issues where there are many frames that either have completely useless abilities or they have ability they just literally cannot survive in Steel Path um, without the use of Helminth. Like I think Banshee is like one of the perfect examples of a frame benefiting from this. If you see Banshee in someone's like tier list, it's she's probably going to be pretty high because Banshee can do insane amounts of damage with any weapon, right? But there's a huge asterisk next to her saying you have to replace her 4 with a defensive Helminth. Now, whether that's pillage, whether that's shooting gallery, whether that's gloom, whatever, but if you don't, she will vaporize against difficult enemies. Um, so, and I think that's a shame. So I think instead of frames getting maybe some buffs or like partial reworks, or in some cases the full reworks that they deserve, the Helminth system has kind of been used a lot like augments. I think DE has been, I think, justifiably criticized a little bit for quote unquote fixing some frames through the use of augments. I think the best example of this would be Frost. Now, I don't really play Frost all that much, um, but so if we go, nah, please don't look at the build. This build is going to be atrocious. I literally never play this frame. But he has things like the new Biting Frost augment. Like this could just be his passive. They could have literally just changed his passive to this, and it wouldn't even be that crazy compared to like Ureli's passive or, I mean, Ureli's passive is worse for an even harder to achieve condition because you have to be on a K drive. Zephyr, she has her midair crit chance thing. So it's like, I think that, it would be nice if some of these things were rolled into the base game. Now, that being said, I think DE has actually done a pretty darn good job. Duviri looks insane. The new stuff that's coming up looks insane. A lot of the new frames are really awesome. I love Kullervo. So this brings me to kind of the turning point I had. So I lost a lot of motivation to make builds because any build, and you can go look at, like I think someone I took a lot of inspiration from was like Nightmare Frame. He makes a lot of great builds. He does a lot of level cap content, and every single one of his videos, it's just like use this frame and put pillage on it, or put breach surge on it, or it's like, okay, well, is the frame actually good? Or are those Helminth options just that busted? And in a lot of cases, it is the Helminth choice carrying the shit out of that frame. I mean, you can look, like this build I have on Titania right now is running Pillage. So I had this idea a little while ago, and it actually, so the last frame build, or the frame video I did was Mag. And I don't use any Helminth abilities on Mag because she doesn't need it. She's just a very solid frame. And that got me thinking, like, could I make a build video for every frame that doesn't, or at least the frames that I enjoy playing, um, where they don't use a Helminth ability? Because frankly, I don't like ever see that. When I look at build videos from content creators, they always have a Helminth ability on 95% of builds, right? So I was like, let's explore how well the frame's base kits can actually do, because frankly, that's almost harder to do now than making a build that uses a Helminth. So Titania was kind of my inspiration. So a while ago, her 3 got buffed. Her lantern got buffed. I think they buffed the augment for it. I don't remember the exact changes, but this is going back a little while. And I actually like used to try to make lantern builds back in the day, like as like a nuke, even though it's atrocious for that, but I was just a complete idiot and I had no idea what I was doing. So this is the build that I came up with, and the idea was, can I make a build that doesn't use a Helminth ability but can still function on Steel Path? Is that possible? So some of these choices are determined by my polarities. So for example, you probably should run Brief Respite here. Now, I will say, I'm not like against people using Helminth. I'm not like against shield gating. It's just gotten a little stale. How it feels like you almost have to use those systems for certain frames to function at all. Like Equinox is another great example. Like go into a Steel Path mission with Equinox without some kind of armor stripping Helminth like Terrify or Pillage or whatever, she doesn't do anything. Maim just tickles enemies unless you armor strip them. So I only play Equinox with Terrify. Now, it would be pretty cool if a frame has this glaring of an issue, if they found some way to fix that in her kit. I don't even care if it's with an augment. Make an augment for Equinox, like really angry maiming that makes her maim apply a slash proc instead of doing direct damage. I don't know. Like there's ways around this. Like give players the options to solve something, to solve a problem within a frame's kit. Anyways, so this is basically like, the gist of this build is you're using Spellbind to keep yourself status immune. I wouldn't really use it to CC enemies because you don't like really need it. You can if you want to. It does count as a condition overload effect because it's the lifted status. Um, but there's like some anti-synergy where lifted enemies seems like they can't be affected by Lantern. Obviously, you have your buffs. I think the evasion one works nicely with Razorwing because Razorwing also has base evasion, and the slow is pretty nice too. I believe that that counts as a status effect. Then you have Lantern, which even with just 175% range has a very large attract radius. And frankly, you don't really care about the explosion radius at all. This ability does 0 damage. This is for grouping enemies up in a huge area so you can shoot them with your Dex Pixia. So Primed Flow, of course, complementing Arcane Energize. You have Prime Continuity and Streamline for like, this has always seemed like enough efficiency, especially combined with Preparation. I like Rolling Guard because you don't get hit that often with this build because there's a lot of evasion and a lot of CC. So if your shields do break, it gives you like, that, I mean, it's Rolling Guard, right? It gives you that buffer window to like reset things. If I did not have a Matter Eye polarity here, I would probably be using Umbral Intensify so I didn't have to take the hit to duration. Like I said, Brief Respite can go here. If you want like a more offensive build, you could drop Rolling Guard and run Razorwing Blitz. And then I wanted to try the Beguiling Lantern augment because Beguiling Lantern also scales off of strength. So you're almost like double dipping on strength scaling where you have Razorwing damage scaling with strength and then your Lantern buffs scaling with strength. So just wanted to try out one of the new augments as well. I mean, Arcane Pistolier is like, I feel like it's practically mandatory on Titania. I wish that her guns just had infinite ammo, frankly. I don't really think that that would be, because they're single target weapons, I don't think that that would be like that crazy of a solution. Um, but that's not the way it is. So Pistolier is the band-aid fix for that. Um, Weapons don't matter. The reason that I have this here is I just have the 2 auger mods for more shield gating. Now, what you could do for the circuit is you could go to every secondary that you own and make a build with just the 2 auger mods. And this will basically give you like a, shield gating stat stick almost. Um, and then I like Unairu because you can. So I think there's two options here for your focus school. So I like Unairu for the armor strip. Obviously, like that's really really awesome, and like the shield strip. Um, the other option I think is Matter-Eye. So you can do the chain sling, getting the ability strength buff because this will snapshot for Razorwing. The other way you can get a little more strength for Razorwing is with your Parazon. You can use Power Drain, which is 100% chance for your next ability to gain 50% strength. So this one's a little awkward to do. So if you were going to use this, you would probably want something um, uh, like a Parazon stat stick, I guess. So the weapon that I like to use for that is the Nagantaka. I don't remember if I had made a build specifically for that, but either way, so the Nagantaka has, oops, there's no enemies there, but the Nagantaka has guaranteed impact procs. So let me just set this up really quick. I just want something to be able to, oops, get my galvanized mods rolling. So the Nagantaka is super nice because you can just and then basically maxes them out on impact. It does a lot of slash procs to get them, below that threshold. So then boom, you can Parazon finish them. And now you can use Razor Wing and you'll have, that buff. Your companion basically doesn't matter. Yeah. So, Dexpixia, I've always preferred like a very status heavy build. I know some people have gone crit on Dexpixia, but yeah, the base crit is just so low that it really doesn't feel worth it to me. So I just go like, all status, like viral, heat, slash. I like Karna Stinger a lot on her weapons because they're such heavy slash weapons for IPS, and then, more status is always good. And then I think it will increase your clear times dramatically if you are running punch through on Titania. Now, I will say this is for like a kind of general mission type build. Like if you're targeting a specific mission or specific encounter, you're definitely going to want to run the Bane mods. I frankly like I hate using those. I'm just lazy. Plus, like, with whatchamacallit, with the circuit, like, you don't really know what you're going to be fighting. Um, and then you can go more of like a direct damage build. Like, I know some people have used Titania for like Eidolons and stuff. So if you're more focused on direct damage, you're going to want to switch this up a little bit. So this is more of a status focused build. So if the enemies can't be affected by statuses, probably not the build you want to use. So I'm going to unpause these guys, go into Razor Wing, make myself status immune, and then boom, cast Lantern. So the way Lantern works, so let me, okay, so it's not Lantern, but, so look how far away I am. So this is the attract radius for Lantern. That is humongous. That's absolutely insane. That's a huge area. And they're just ignoring me. They're just chilling over there. They're just, hitting the lantern, or, observing the lantern. Oh, all right. Now, of course, I'm gonna die. So I'm trying to get my buffs up. So one thing is you can recast Razorwing to get new pixies. So your pixie. So the reason to do that is your pixies will go pick up the buffs that you create with your 2, so you don't have to fly and get them. But your Razor Wings can die over time. So you can see the little counter over your 4 ability. So if I make a buff here, my pixies will go get it up. See, they went and got it for me. You can see it on the screen there. So we can make another one of these guys a lantern to refresh that. So now what you want to do is you want to basically just want to like shoot enemies at head level. Now of course the butchers I had summoned in to stack up my galvanized mods are no longer here. So they're taking extra damage because of the Lantern augment. I'm running out of ammo because there's no like fodder enemies for me to get Arcane Pistolier procs off of. But basically you want to like stay at head level, shoot everybody that's being affected by Lantern, and just apply a whole bunch of procs. You can go right into your operator from Razorwing, and that'll basically just auto kill everything, right? If you defense strip them. So let's go hop over to Steel Path really quick, and then we can finish up the video. So I've actually was like, I don't even know why I started playing Titania again. She's always a frame that I'm like, oh, like man, I should play this frame. You kind of forget how strong she is sometimes. She's kind of like Zephyr was one of the first frames that I ever played, and Zephyr's kind of like that where she was like my main for the longest time. And obviously Zephyr is like insanely strong now compared to how she used to be. She was never like bad, but now she's objectively like very, very, very good. Alright, so let's summon in some enemies. So like before, get your Razor Wing up, get your 1 buff up. I honestly usually turn sprinting off. Now the one critique I will say about Titania is, man, they really need to give her buffs the Grendel treatment. Because holy moly, they are just like atrocious to keep up. Their one saving grace is that they do have like a fixed duration. So, yeah, so this is Steel Path. Everything is just getting butchered. You're not taking any damage. You can, keep up your status immunity. Honestly, the best thing about the status immunity is you don't get staggered from running into walls. So you can just move to a new area, cast Lantern on a new target, fly around at head level. You can see Pistoliers procced. I have infinite ammo. Nobody's even looking at me. Everything is nice. This is like, the more I played this, the more I was like, oh, this is kind of like almost too easy of a build. And then you can do things like, okay, let's see, you're up against Corpus, so you set up your huge like shield stripping thing around here, or we're against Greniers, so I'll chuck, the armor strip, and it's like, okay, now we have a huge area, or everything is grouped up to be armor stripped. So like, okay, so it kind of has like a lot of nice synergy. And then because you have punch through on your weapons, because enemies are grouping up towards the Lantern, it kind of like naturally groups enemies for you in a pretty massive radius. So yeah, it's been pretty surprisingly effective. I've played it a bunch in the circuit. I did like some Steel Path incursions with it. So, not I mean, not like crazy endurance runs, but I don't really do endurance runs very much. Sometimes if I get a good circuit group, like I've gone to level cap in normal missions before. There's no reason to do that really. I've done it in the circuit a bunch of times just to like you're in a good group and like everybody's talking and it's like everybody just keeps continuing and it's fun, so it can be fun to do that sometimes. But yeah, so I will hopefully be continuing to produce some new non-Helminth builds, which I'm looking forward to doing that for some frames that traditionally rely on Helminth pretty heavily. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy this build. If you have any comments, of course, please leave those. If anyone has any frames you'd like me to look at, always welcome to new ideas. Or if there's any like cool like augment synergies or synergies with weapons or whatever. I love doing builds in Warframe is one of my favorite things in the game. So always love to hear feedback and ideas. So I hope everybody has a great day, and hope you enjoy the build. And I'm really looking forward to Grendel Prime. All right, see you later, everybody.